folks, if you haven't heard anything, it's because we hadn't started yet. I just want to make sure that Asher got us live. Good job. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's so nice to have a nice circle here. It makes it a little bit more intimate. And later on this evening, we'll have the pleasure of hearing Council Member Ronaldo Fierro, who represents the area where the temple is located. But to begin, we are going to sing Shalom Aleichem. And of course, I didn't write down the page number. So.
One of the nice things about sitting in a circle is that we can sing at each other and hear each other even better than when we're sitting in rows. So please join me on this. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Porchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And to light our Shabbat candles, Susie Kopel, page 120 and 2. So let me explain for those who don't know. The little book that you have it's upside down. Okay. It opens from the other side. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Page 2. So it's could you turn on the mic? So there are two books. One's a fat one, one's a thin one. You have the thin ones. So I'm going to give 2 page numbers, one for the fat book and one for the thin book. So page 2, all the way at the other end. Sorry. It's confusing. It's Hebrew. Nobody.
I guess
That's not fair. I just handed you a.
we're not going to light the candles.
Technical difficulties.
Wish I had brought mine.
So I don't know what smokes anymore. No one has.
Oops.
Let me just do this, and then you can use. Is the thing there? Yeah. 120.
Mm-hmm. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Technical. Ooh. Wait, hang on. Someone did not.
I hope we have fire insurance.
So we're in good shape.
Where's the other thing?
This is.
Yeah. It was not put in very well. Okay, there we go.
Oh.
Yeah, you might have to. You think you're having problems. Look at this mess. Oh, God. This is ridiculous.
And we're starting now. That's right. Dangerous job.
This,
I can't get this candle.
Hope the temple has good insurance. Good.
Oh my God. Wait a minute. Oh my God. This thing
we have to do it differently. That's all there's
will,
to
maybe
it.
use this instead.
Come on.
See the mess here. Wait, now before you put, yeah,
What?
yeah, I was gonna do that.
Well,
Okay,
Yay.
don't blow too hard.
here, hold the book for me, please.
Looking good.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Susan. Partner in crime.
What a mess.
Okay, and we're going to continue with the Kiddush, which Elliot's going to leave page 123 and 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. B'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemase bereshit. Ki hu תפילה למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
L'chaim. That's easier than lighting candles.
Yeah.
Maybe. So our Torah portion this week is replete with a variety of stories and lessons. We begin with Abraham sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. Presumably, he has just been circumcised, as this is where we left off in the last Torah portion. God appears to Abraham, suggesting that God is coming to comfort him from the pain of the operation. For the Talmud, God exemplifies that we too are supposed to visit the sick, bikur holim. Though we cannot change the course of someone's illness on a physical level, we can ease their suffering and provide them with a caring presence. So the second song is Mipiel, a Sephardic song from Aleppo, which is often associated with Vayera, and Elliot's going to tell us a little bit about it.
This song has a very nice, easy to learn chorus that will keep coming back. In that part, the words are Mipiel, Umipiel, Yevorach Kol Yisrael. Let's say that together. Mipiel twice. Mipiel,
Mipiel,
Umipiel,
Mipiel,
Yevorach Kol Yisrael.
Yevorach Kol Yisrael.
And this is what that sounds like.
Mipiel, o mipiel, Yevorach kol Yisrael.
Let's try that. And
Mipiel, o mipiel, Yevorach kol Yisrael.
one more time. Here we go.
Mipiel, mipiel, Yevorach kol Yisrael. Ein adil kadonai, vein baruch keven amram, ein kadola katora, vein dashtena kol Yisrael. Mipiel, Gadur Kadonai, Ben Vatik, Ben Amram, En Zaka Katora, Bechachameha Ka Yisrael, Mipiel, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Yisrael, Ein Tahor Kadonai, Ben Yachid Keven Amram, En Kabira Katora, Ben Lamdamnecha Ka Yisrael, Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Yis. Again, here we go. And Mipiel, Yevorach Kol Yisrael.
And do you want to tell us what that means?
Well, it's from the mouth of God we are all blessed. There's none as mighty as God, blessed as Moses, great as the Torah, and no interpreters like Israel. Goes on like that for a while. And there is none who can redeem like God, none as righteous as Moses, holy as the Torah, and none hold it closer than Israel.
Thank you. So within moments of God visiting Abraham following his circumcision, Abraham sees three strangers approaching, demonstrating that concern for one's fellow human being takes precedence over communing with God. Abraham runs to greet them, offers to wash their feet, and provides them with a meal, a non-kosher one, but that's another story. The rabbis find a way to deal with that. Because he says, prepare a calf and all this dairy stuff, and how could he? And the rabbis say, well, they waited the right amount of time between eating the meat and the dairy, so they're okay. What's that? I can never remember. 6 hours. 2 hours from dairy to meat, 6 hours from meat to dairy. And they apparently did that because all the way back then they already knew that that's what you were supposed to do.
But when do you go in swimming? How long do you have to wait?
So now it turns out that these three men are actually angels, and they're coming to announce that Abraham and Sarah are going to have a child. Upon hearing this, Sarah laughs at the thought that Abraham, as old as he is, could be virile enough to get her pregnant. God admonishes her for laughing. But when God then relates the incident to Abraham, God changes the story by saying that Sarah said, "Shall I bear a child, I who am so old?" In other words, I'm the one who's old, not him. And even though truth is a major value in Judaism, the Midrash approves this little lie as necessary as a compromise to maintain shalom bayit, peace in the house. They want Abraham to feel bad. Okay, the Hatzi Kaddish is page 263 in the big books and 145 in the thin ones.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
בארבע דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביום אחד ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו
Amen. And we rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship on the next page.
This is a Baruch Hu written by Rachel Nelson.
La 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 la.
Let's try that.
La 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. La 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 la.
So Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt has written wonderful poems about different Torah portions, and this is one of her many poems about this week's Torah portion. So up to you to interpret, and this is her interpretation. It's called After These Things. The hidden ache of infertility, their marriage straining at the seams beneath everything unspoken. As you know, it took them many, many, many years to have a son, and then all of a sudden, he's supposed to be sacrificed on Mount Moriah. Sarai's desperate play for control, claiming she wouldn't mind if Avram slept with the maid. Then watching Hagar's belly swell, how she carried unborn Ishmael as though she were dancing. After jealousy arose between them like brackish water, after Hagar spoke with the Almighty, after Avram changed their names and circumcised his heart, after the angels came, after Abraham argued with God and Lot offered his own daughters to a mob of angry men, after Abraham and Sarah moved to Abimelech's lands, desperate to escape their own story, after they returned home and Sarah became pregnant, and they named their son Laughter, because Isaac, Yitzchak, means laughter. After Sarah had laughed, to think of milk flowing from her withered breasts. After Sarah saw the boys at play and stayed there a while. After Abraham had forgotten Sarah's exhausted radiance when she first held their son. After these things, the sweet and the bitter, God tested Abraham. So there are a lot of things that happen leading up to this, all in one Torah portion, right? And Hagar, who is maid, young, beautiful woman. Sarah's like, 85 or something like that. And she has not been able to have a son. So she gives her maid to Abraham, which is pretty horrible. Like, here, sleep with my maid and I'll have a son. But then she never really adopts that kid. And she feels jealous, both of Hagar, who is young and fertile, and she's not, and of the son, who now is the older son. The older son in those days would inherit twice as much as the younger son. And so she gets jealous and tosses them out. And Hagar and Ishmael are out in the wilderness about to die, when at the last minute, Hagar sees a well to save them. So the next, after these things, is when God says, take your son, your only one, the one you love, Isaac, and take him up on Mount Moriah and sacrifice him. In a sense, putting Abraham and Sarah through the same thing that they put Hagar through, the virtual loss of their kid. So kind of, you never really get away with anything in the Torah. If you do something, eventually it's going to catch up with you. Sometimes it happens in real life, but not always, as we know. Ahavat Olam is the prayer where we acknowledge that out of love for us, God gave us Torah, which is our path in life, page 266 and 148 in your books.
Ahavat olam bet Yisrael amehavta Torah mitzvot chokim umishpatim otanu lemadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shovenu u'bekumenu nasiach b'chukecha שומרי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה.
So the central prayer for us is the Shema, which states that God is one, which means that we're all one as we're all created in God's image. And it also means that we have one moral compass. We don't have several gods that we serve who have different, ideas and goals. So the Shema is very important. And we surround it with various blessings, like the one we just went through, which is about God's love for us. And part of the Shema is also the Ve'ahavta, which is that we will love God just as much as God loves us. So we rise to the Shema. On the next page.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Carol Lee has, first time ever? Okay, Carol Lee has a sore throat and, not a sore throat. She had a flu shot, okay. So they say, his famous last words. Okay, anyway. I know.
Yeah, we can do it again.
All right, so the Ve'ahavta, which is part of the Shema, comes out of Deuteronomy chapter 6, and it's on page 268 and 150 in the smaller books. And Elliot and I are going to do it together. Okay, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta ba'am v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shofecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha l'man tizkeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. When did you switch seats, Elliot? All of a sudden you're way up high. And now I'm the little shrimp here.
It's too low for me to breathe and play guitar.
Oh, okay. We were talking about how these seats are so low, and I said, well, why don't we take those higher seats? And he said, no, we don't want to tower over people. And at least on the camera, you look like you're towering over everybody. That's okay. So the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is also part of our Torah portion this week. Abraham's nephew Lot spends the night in Sodom, where the men try to rape him. Lot, gentleman that he is, offers his virgin daughters instead. Men don't want the virgin daughters. Now, the place is so wicked and so irredeemable that God decides to destroy it. But first, God consults with Abraham. Abraham argues with God. What if there are 50 righteous people there? Will you destroy them as well? God relents. But there are not even 50 righteous people in Sodom. So Abraham says to God, well, what if there are 40 righteous people? God relents again, but there aren't 40 righteous people. And so on until they reach the number 10. There aren't even 10 righteous people. So God destroys the cities. And 10 kind of represents a, basic number that you need to have a decent society. If you don't have a certain, the minimal number of people who are decent, then you're not going to have a society you want to live in. And by the way, one of the things that these people do, apparently according to the Midrash, which is interpretation of the Torah, is that not only are they really selfish and they won't help anybody, but if anybody helps anyone out who's hungry, they kill them. And there's one story where they give somebody a coin so the guy can go buy food. But then no one will sell him food. So he dies and they take the coin back. Lovely. And there's another one where I think it's one of Lot's daughters, actually, who goes and tries to feed someone. And when they found out, they put honey all over her and sick bees on her. So they're really bad. So they deserve to die, apparently. Now, Lot and his family, what's the matter? Okay, yeah, I know. It's a pretty horrible picture, isn't it? Yeah, horrible. So now Lot and his family, they're all told, leave and do not look back. Now, the sons-in-law stay because they figure, how bad can it be? But Lot and his daughters and the wife all leave. However, Lot's wife turns back and looks at the destruction, and she's turned into a pillar of salt, which apparently explains why there's some pillars of salt around that area. But according to one interpretation, her sin was being unable to break with the immorality of the past. So we can also look at that as any way that we're stuck with the past, where we can't let go of something that's really not healthy for us. So luckily, after hundreds of years of slavery, we broke from the past and were liberated, crossing the Sea of Reeds on dry land. When we got to the other side, we sang the Micha Mocha, amazed at the miracle that God performed for us. So the Micha Mocha, Who is Like You, God, is page 270 and 152 in the thinner books.
מי כמוך בלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים, לפני משה את מרים, זה עליינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד.
Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt wrote a lot of pieces about the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and this is just one of them. It's called The Angels Say. So you know the story. God says, take your son up on the mountain, bind him, and kill him as a sacrifice. And Abraham has a big knife, and he's about to thrust it into his son's chest when the angel stops him. And this is supposed to be the 10th test for Abraham. Did he pass it or not? The whole discussion we could have at the high holidays when we read the Akedah. But anyway, according to this piece, Abraham failed the test. For Sodom and Gomorrah, he argued, But when it came to his son, no protest crossed his lips. God was mute with horror. Abraham, smasher of idols and digger of wells, was meant to talk back. Sarah would have been wiser, but Abraham avoided her tent and didn't lay his head in her lap to unburden his secret heart. In stricken silence, God watched as Abraham saddled his ass, his donkey, and took Isaac on their last hike to the place God would show him. The angel had to call twice. Abraham's eyes were red, his voice hoarse. He wept like a man hardened, but God never spoke to him again. And by the way, Mount Moriah is where the Dome of the Rock is now, and it's, in Muslim hands, so we can't pray up there, but such are the compromises one makes to try to keep the peace. So we're going to continue with Vishamru, which is about our keeping the Sabbath, gift that we have on the weekend, where we can actually renew ourselves spiritually, pages 272 and 154.
This is a version that comes from South Africa.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש.
Nice. I really appreciate all the variety that you bring.
Thank you.
Sephardic and African. The tefillah, our standing prayer, begins on page 273 and 155, and we rise.
No, I haven't.
Adonai sefetai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע. מחלחל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ודופק חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך באר גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך במית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום להלוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please continue silently, either with the words in the prayer book or the words of your own heart. And when you are done, you may be seated, or if you need to be seated earlier, you may do so. Yihiyu L'Ratzon, where we're asking for God to accept our prayers, is on page 167 in the thin books and 285 in the fat ones.
Yehu l'ratzon, may the words of my mouth, imrei fi vegon libi, and the meditation of my heart, lefanecha Adonai, be acceptable unto you, O God, tzuri v'goali, my rock and my redeemer. Amen.
We take a moment now to think of those in need of healing, whether of body, of mind, or of spirit. We think of congregants and friends and family of congregants, Jonathan Davidson, Ben Henderson, Kara Gilman, Rabbi Steve Robbins, Gloria Mangus, Leslie Ferris, Pamela Mangus, Johnny Sickhat, Judy Richmond, Audrey Eller, J. Michael Johnson, Jesse Dollamore, Glickle Sarah Batdevora Milka Gittel, Vicki Dix, Ron McDonald, Gary Copel. Would anyone like to add a name? Please do so as I look around. And on Zoom, let's see if there's some names. Robin Kurland, Amy Morton, Judy Gladstone, Kim Ko, Raul Camacho, Rabbi Mel Young, Sandra Landis, Rachel Heslin, I think is what it's supposed to be. Sarah Heslin, Jess Landis, Ron Brazil, Ron Jones, Paige Fernandez, Mercedes Frias, Barry Beck, Charlene Beck. And please join us in the Misha Baroth, the prayer for healing is on the inside cover of your prayer book. In the front.
Misha berach avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Misha berach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and be strengthened by the power of your love. Bless, teach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, hear our prayer, hear our prayer. Hear our prayer and bless us as well.
It's easy to lose count.
What's that?
It's easy to lose count on those.
Oh, how many? So I'm very pleased tonight to welcome both Councilmember Ronaldo Fierro and his mighty aide, Caleb Reagan. Mighty, and that's the official title. So, Mr. Fierro was elected to the Riverside City Council in November of 2019, and he serves our area here that the temple is in. Before serving on the City Council, Mr. Fierro served on the Board of Directors for Path of Life Ministries, a leading homeless relief nonprofit organization in the Inland Empire. He was born and raised in Riverside by Mel and Mary Ann Fierro. His father worked harvesting in fields up and down California and eventually began a family-owned produce company. After attending Riverside City College and Pitzer College, Mr. Fierro followed in his father's entrepreneurial footsteps and established 2 successful restaurants in downtown Riverside, the Salted Pig and W. Wolfskill. Mr. Fierro and his wife, Sheena, have a daughter and live in the Victoria Woods neighborhood of Riverside. In office, Mr. Fierro emerged as a leader in the region's response to the pandemic, authoring measures to provide utility and rental relief, public health protections for essential workers, and crafted one of the earliest local emergency grant programs focused on providing capital assistance to businesses left out of federal programs such as the Paycheck Protection Program. Fierro took a leadership role in city efforts to rein in a more sustainable future for the Inland Empire, a region long known as the air pollution capital of the nation, a great claim to fame. He was the key architect behind a plan to bring a unique zero-emission streetcar system and its company headquarters to Riverside's Innovation District. Mr. Fierro has committed to working with the city's 4 college institutions, including UC Riverside, the Greater Riverside Chamber of Commerce, business leaders, and entrepreneurial systems to leverage the movement of the California Air Resources Board to Riverside. And in fact, Avi Lavi got a job working for them, one of our congregants and a board member. And this launched a new clean and green economic dynamic fueled by high-paying, skilled, clean tech jobs in the inland region. So, welcome, and I'm going to switch seats with you, and you can be as low as I am.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
Yeah.
I've forgotten where I put my mask. That was my hand. That's what I always did.
And
I had a...
Put the mic close because otherwise people on Zoom can't hear you. Yeah.
Can Zoom here?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. I always love doing stuff like this because I am so much more thoughtful when I'm being immersed in tradition and culture that I'm not overly familiar with. And I did grow up Catholic, so I'm a little familiar. And I wasn't everyone's favorite Catholic in school because I questioned everything, and I didn't understand why that was bad, right? I'm like, well, just explain to me. And he's like, well, I shouldn't have to. And I'm like, why? And I didn't understand faith properly. I didn't understand the point he was trying to make. I was being very rational because I'm in school taking other courses, and I want the same burden of proof, right? But I didn't understand it. I was wrong. I would never admit it to that teacher because we didn't get along. But I'd say that because I sit here and I remember that moment, and I remember how different politics is, because we don't use the word faith, we use the word trust. I have to constantly, and every elected official has to constantly earn everyone's trust. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but every day. And the day you don't earn it, you're gone. and they will find someone else they can trust. And that's the way it's supposed to work. The rabbi asked me to speak about a vision for Riverside, and I'm going to give you the really immediate fun stuff that I see for the city of Riverside, but I feel very rarely do we cast a greater vision, right, of what we want to believe, because it seems too high level. We can't control it. There was a quote I saw in there about how, the tide doesn't act on its own. It acts as a result of the moon in the orbit, and that acts as a result of a galaxy. And so often we forget that we do have our own vision, but you can't ignore that it's affected, right, by a larger thing. And national politics, federal politics, whatever side you're on, it just seems so distant and toxic, and like you can't have a voice in it. And it looks like they would rather disagree forever than even attempt to agree, right? Because it's comfortable. It's a really comfortable place to be around the people who believe what you believe, and I believe, and I'm right and they're wrong. It is not a football game. You do not pick a side and then be excited when your side wins. If only one side wins, eventually everyone will lose. And so I think Riverside's about to go into a different era. I think that there's a younger generation that's moving here. There's a younger generation that's staying here. And there's an older generation, sometimes 3/4 generation, and we have to combine what they both want and need. And it's hard. And I see an era of politics where it's becoming even harder it's hard to bridge people of different parties, much like people from different backgrounds, different generations. And I think that can happen on the local level. But we have to all agree. Everybody here knows why they're here, right? You know why you're here as a group, you know why you're here individually, and you know why you're here spiritually. People need to know that too. I know what I want for Riverside. I want a prosperous Riverside. Of course, we all want that, right? I want clean air, clean water. I want my child to go to a good school. I want to make sure that when I'm older, that I have ample places to go. That I'm not, if I'm deaf, that I have equal access everywhere in the city. And those are hard goals to achieve if we're worrying about me being right and you being wrong. And I see it all the time. I see it on the I have people come and do public comment, and I can yelling at me like, why are you trying to do what Gavin Newsom wants? And I'm like, I don't even know but it's hard to de-link those things. So my vision for Riverside is that through a strong shared goal, and we can debate how to get there, but we have to agree on the goal. And unfortunately, politics has become an argument over the question itself and not the solution. I want to talk about business. I want to talk about this, and I don't want to talk about that other thing. And I don't want to debate who has the right solution. Let's just debate about what the problem is. And then what happens? I win my debate. The solution was never part of it. I won. We agree that this is bad or this is good. And then we repeat that cycle. So I really see the City of Riverside trying to make a shift into actually doing concrete work. And we can wax intellectual at cocktail parties about, grand ideas of politics, but in the end, we have real work to do. And people are growing impatient, and I'm growing impatient watching it happen. So that being said, I had to get that off my chest. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about it. I watched the election coverage, and I really think that we're close. We're close to getting along, and I see the City of Riverside breaking from its long-standing tradition of Riversiders first. We don't worry about that. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, and COVID didn't help, separated us, isolated us, and we all came back and we forgot that we're all so similar. We're so similar, especially as Riversiders in particular. We want the same thing. So Riverside has to grow, but it has to do it slowly. Riverside will be an urban metropolis one day, and it's well on its way. That doesn't mean we're going to stop having single-family home neighborhoods or a local, hardware store that you can go into. But it does mean that the downtown needs to grow. A lot of people only want single-family home residences. The new couple, 25 years old, got married, they can't afford that. So you have to understand that you have to give them a chance to have, they don't even have the opportunity to have a single-family home. They simply just want a home in Riverside. And it's hard sometimes to think about how we bridge that gap, but we're working on it. We're working on affordable housing. And Riverside has never been as close to achieving that leap as it is right now. So that'd be. Now I know why you keep water next to you. So anyway, that was all just to say that that was an optimism speech. I don't know if it came off that way at all, but it was meant to be optimistic. I said it very somberly. But in terms of Riverside itself, I mean, we have a ton of growth happening right now. We have new business trying to move here. The California Air Resources Board is a huge opportunity. These companies, some of the biggest and fastest growing in the world, doing the most cutting edge technology, paying employees very well, they have to be near that facility, or they want to be near that facility. So they come here because of that, but then we show them why they really should be here. That was the impetus to come here, but why am I going to stay? Why do I want to grow? Orange came here one day. They were basically, convinced to come out here, and I'm sure it was hard. And once they were here, they never left. Riverside has that ability to do that kind of stuff, and I see CARB as our new kind of beacon to attract that type of industry, not industry that saves the planet, creates good jobs, and helps the city grow in the way it needs to. And the problem with city council is it covers all things. So can we open up the questions and then,
I was going to say that there are a couple of exciting things that have just happened recently here. The opening of the Cheech Museum, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
If anyone hasn't gone, you really need to go. It's incredible. And also the new Civil Rights Institute, very exciting. That also includes affordable housing. So there are some exciting things happening. Yeah, I'm going to open it to questions. I'm going to start with the people on Zoom because they will not be around for the ONEG to ask questions directly. So I'm going to give them first shot. So are there people on Zoom who have any questions? Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Out there in TV world.
Anybody? I'm looking at the screen because that's the only way I can tell who's out there. Most people have their cameras off, but you can still speak. Okay, if you don't have questions, I'm going to turn it to people here. Anybody going once, going twice?
We are writing in some questions.
Oh, well, I can't see that. I'm sorry. I'm not at my computer. Mr. Fierro,
I didn't know I was supposed to be
can you
looking
see it? Can you just say what the question is? Because, I mean, you have to go.
By that I mean
Caleb, help him with technology.
the sliding scale of technology.
You have to go over to that little dot all the way on the edge and push it down. You want me to do it? Here.
Probably.
All right. Unfortunately,
You want me to light the candles too?
I think you should light the candles, definitely. You know what? Why don't you sit there? Because guess what? That's higher, and then people can see you better, and then I can see the computer. And you can take this microphone, but talk right into it because it's...
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Very logistically complicated service tonight. Okay, Caleb, you got all these strange emojis up. I don't know how this happened. I can't get rid of them. I can't get rid of them now. Look at this.
You gotta click.
There you go. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Caleb. Okay. This is from Christine Lietman. How is Riverside getting for consistent high temperatures and drought and reduced water availability? What is happening for renewable energy? Oh, I'm sorry. How is Riverside getting ready for consistent high temperatures and drought and reduced water availability? And what is happening for renewable energy?
It's a big question. Hello? Oh,
Yeah.
That's a really big question, obviously. And certainly those issues stretch far beyond our region, are being tackled by the state, by the federal government. But in terms of what the city itself doing, lucky enough, some smart Riversiders a long time ago understood that water rights in this particular area and access to it were going to be difficult. And we have spent a long time making the city of Riverside a very water secure city. Now, that is not exactly what it means. We still do share this water with other areas, and of course we will also be affected by the drought. That is the largest issue being caused by changing weather patterns as a result of climate change, is that rain comes all at once and we don't know how to capture it. So right now there is massive billion-dollar infrastructure projects that are being rapidly built to try to capture new technology to do rain capture and water capture in a way it's never been done before. It's happening too late. They're trying to go as fast as possible. They've completely streamlined the permit process where they can do this stuff very quickly. But that is the only real solution, is that we're not going to be able to change weather patterns, and we're going to need to be able to drink a lot of water all at once when we were used to getting it slowly over time. And that's just, we adapt. We're humans, we're good at it. We will adapt, we will find ways. In terms of renewable energy, the city of Riverside is going to be completely carbon neutral by 2040. At least that's our goal. And I don't generally set unrealistic goals. I set a goal, I want to meet it. And I think the city is well on its way for that. We are already almost over 50% completely renewable portfolio for all our electricity. And in 2024, we will officially be off our last coal plant. So a lot of this was started by certain mandates, but the city of Riverside was already invested in this stuff, and therefore we were able to meet those mandates not only quickly, but quicker than what was asked of us. So we're doing a good job, and it's kind of hard to talk about these issues with just a city because there's no borders, right? LA's air comes into our air, but if everybody does something, it has a huge impact. So that is, at the moment, what is happening. And there's other bigger projects, and I'm not a
look up there. They'll see better. Yeah, I know. It's very confusing.
That's okay.
The screen's there, but the camera's there. Yeah.
So I'm not a utilities expert, but that is where we're at right now.
Okay, now since you said you were okay with taking tough questions.
Well, tough-ish.
Tough-ish. Well, I'm going to read you a question here, which can't help it. It's there.
I don't know who's going to win the house.
Okay, so it says, according to the Salted Pig's Instagram page and a former employee, in mid-March of 2020, you chose to keep your restaurant open in defiance of the state's public health orders. Do you regret making that decision?
That's not true.
Okay, so it's not true.
We shut down before everybody and opened pretty much last.
Okay.
Because I did believe in it and my staff wanted it. And if none of those were true, I'm not going to tell, as a city official, people to do something I'm not willing to do. So no.
And I did read that you were critical of the Board of Supervisors getting rid of some of these mandates, right?
I was upset with it because, again, sometimes we lose sight of what the goal was. The goal was to get over this as quickly as possible because I hated COVID. As an elected official, as a restaurant owner, I mean, I got hit from all sides with it. I very much wanted it over. But we were letting petty arguments and making it about I believe COVID's real, and I'm a Democrat, so therefore I have to be against it, and vice versa. And it just caused a lot of back and forth, who's right, who's wrong, when we knew the few things that were working, and we kept going back and forth on that, which was delaying what we all said we wanted. So we lost sight of the goal, and that was where my frustration was. To be fair, there was no playbook for this, and everyone was trying their best, and they were trying to balance a lot of different feelings, constituents, stakeholders, business owners. So it wasn't easy, but I was in the middle of it too, so I felt I was allowed to pass a little judgment. So.
Okay, we'll do one more question from the Zoom people, and then we'll move to here. How do you envision creating other ways to unify us as a community? Unfortunately, as a Jewish person of color, discrimination is prevalent these days. Even as I drive to my private practice, police will occasionally stop me as they think I stole the car I drive.
I have an interesting anecdote because the same thing happened to me directly in front of right here on Victoria. I was coming home from the gym, Canyon Crest Gym, and I was in my car and I was in gym clothes, and I think I'm a nerdy looking kid, but apparently when I have my shaved head and I'm sweating and I'm in gym clothes, apparently I don't look like that. But I got pulled over. It was because I turned too quickly. I can't remember what it was, so it didn't seem like a thing that I would get pulled over for. And it would have probably not been a big deal. Turns out I had just gotten a new car, and I made the mistake of putting my old car's front license plate as my new plate there. So he saw my license plate that didn't match. Certainly that's bad, right? But there's a million reasons why that could happen. And I was driving a baby blue hybrid Escape. And I was in Victoria neighborhood, and he goes, "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" I said, I live down the street. He goes, "With your parents?" I said, "No, with myself." I said, I own a house down there, yeah. And he's just like, oh, okay. He goes, well, get out of your car and sit on the curb. And I did it. And I wasn't even mad because I had a very great upbringing. I had great parents. We really never wanted for anything. My dad was a hard worker. And as a result, we didn't deal with as much of like racism and things like that you would because, you know, when you're in different communities, you don't get hit with the same type of bias. So I wasn't as keen to recognizing it was happening. I was more just confused and like really wanted to go home. And I was really tired. I just worked out. And it took me a second to realize it. And then he kept asking me like, is this your car? And I'm like, yes. He goes, is it really though? I'm like, I can't change my answer. This is my car. And in the end, we figured it out. I figured out what it was. I explained to him and he eventually let me go. I don't think it was necessarily because of how I looked. I just think that, again, we choose to not want to understand. It's easier to jump to conclusions. Like, I know it's comfortable, right? We all watch TV and we watch reality TV and we judge the people's actions, right? Because we don't know them. It's easy. And they're putting them on, you know, and it's been hard to see the community grow in that way. I think that's where it's growing the slowest because it involves emotion, family, history. Certainly outside factors don't help. The news, there's a lot of money to be made by stoking that divide and keeping people interested, but it's really bad for happiness and general well-being. So
But you must admit that racial profiling does exist.
oh, it absolutely does.
And so what are we doing about that as far as the police go?
Well, obviously they're always trying to not do that. Obviously it's against policy and all that, but I think it's a deeper issue of why we do it and how we're able to justify it, because I truly believe that nobody walks out and goes, oh, I'm racist. Yeah, I am, right? There's always a justification. No one steals from their employer and goes, yeah, I'm stealing this. And they justify it, right? Well, he hasn't been paying you well and all that. And I really think that there are large issues with how communities interact with each other. And stakeholder groups, like whether it's law enforcement, whether military, city officials, they suffer from groupthink. They can't avoid it. And unfortunately, when you're with a group who's constantly in adversarial situations with groups, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I think it's an incredibly complicated issue, and one that I think we're moving in the right direction as a whole, but large events or national events that get nationalized remind us that we have so far to go. It's not the 1960s, right? We're not seeing that, but I never want any person to have to think that they're being treated unfairly by the people who are protecting them because they're misunderstood or because they're judging them for something they can't control. And the Riverside Police Department, from everyone I've talked to, I've never picked up on a systemic culture of that. But it can turn on a dime. It can, and it can if we don't remember that public safety is about keeping people safe. And sometimes it's hard to not see it as I'm out there to get the bad guys. And they are out there to get the bad guys. But the bad guy is also someone they're supposed to protect if someone else is a bad guy to them. And that's a complicated dynamic to figure out. And it was an easy problem to ignore because there was no spotlight on it. There's many spotlights now. And I think once enough situations happen, and I think they have, that give people the perspective to understand why it's a problem. And at minimum, even if you don't agree with the narrative, you understand that there's a large amount of people within the community who don't believe that these people are here to protect me. And that is bad for everybody. So it is very much a problem that needs to get fixed.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, so let's take a couple questions from here, and then we'll move on. Steve?
I'm glad you chose me first, because you just gave me my segue. So I have an ask rather than asking a question. You may notice I'm holding an iPod this whole time. And what I'm tonight is just to wash the front door. We used to have the front door open, all are welcome. Now, I watch for a later arrival.
So you know what? I'm sorry. I have to give you the mic because I just realized people on Zoom can't hear you. No,
I'm talking about security here at the temple. So with the iPod, the iPad, this thing, the best I can hope for is if something were to happen to give us maybe an extra 30 seconds or a minute if I saw something and yelled it out, which isn't much. We're vulnerable here. And as we're all very aware, anti-Semitism is on a rise. So my ask is, since you're the representative of this area, is maybe be cognizant that on Friday nights, we're here. We're in here every Friday night, and our kids are here every Sunday morning. So have a conversation with the chief of police. You've probably maybe done this, but our
Security
representative
walkthroughs
could
are
too.
very common and very appropriate.
Drive
especially
through our
given the
parking
climate.
lots, Friday nights between 7 and 8:30, Sunday mornings. Just be aware that we're here and give us an extra eye, because I think we all need one right now.
I absolutely agree, and I think that the police department is very receptive to, hey, yes, we are obviously susceptible, but we're more susceptible right now, and I think it'd be very important for them to come out and do a site visit. Think of ways where, especially what if a situation happens where they have to know the building. It'd be nice if they already know
I will
it.
say the police have been very good to us. I mean,
know that.
When we've had any holidays where we know there are going to be a lot of people, they do give us extra security. They don't necessarily do stuff Friday night, but I mean, we can ask them. Yeah. So they've been actually really, very responsive to us, and they have done a walkthrough, and we are trying to get more security. There's a proposal that Rusty Russell, who's the head of the security committee, has written up to get a door in that wall over there. Not this wall, but the one, there's actually a wall over there so that people can escape that way rather than going through a narrow corridor here, and to make our fences higher and that kind of thing. So we're working on it. Okay, Elise, last question. Then you can also talk to Mr. Fierro during the ONEG.
Yes, welcome, Councilman. You're my neighbor, and I'm asking you about homelessness. Would you talk about it? We had a situation today right on Rockledge Drive. We have lots, there were, some reason, Veterans Day, because our garbage cans are out. We don't know why. 3 different homeless people at different times gouging through things. And then there was a poor woman, about 50. He was called to about 4 o'clock, and she was dressed for summer, scantily dressed. Certain parts were showing, and she was bending down, taking the fruit. Lots of fruits in our neighborhood, oranges, lemons. So she had a little baby carriage and was putting fruit in it. It was, it was about 4 o'clock. It was sad. So a couple other neighbors happened to be walking their dogs, so we all got involved, and we gave her coats and socks and food, and we called the police. I don't know if they ever came, and I know someone went to your house, and so I don't. But anyway, the whole thing of homelessness, I know the city's trying to build more places. Can you talk more about that?
No, certainly. I'm not going to say it's complicated. We know, right? And with that issue in particular, I mean, that's where it hits home, right? It was 3 doors down from my house, and I was not home. And then my wife calls me to tell me that Dan Bernstein just knocked on our door to say Ronaldo has to do something about this, and I'm not even there, right? So I'm getting worried. She tells me my daughter's scared, and I've been around this enough to know that this person is most likely not a threat to the community, but it's almost worse because they're uncomfortable, they feel bad, they also want them to not be there, but they also don't want to be bad people. And that's what I witnessed when I finally got home. I saw that the neighbors were trying to help this person, clothes, food, everything, but they also really were like uncomfortable that they had to be doing it. And that is when, people say, like, why can't you have a good heart? Like, people really do try, right? But in the end, it's how much of themselves they're supposed to give up for a situation, right? And especially if there's kids involved, then it's like, well, now it's just not about me. And so those situations make it harder to get people to be patient and to understand that these are going to be issues that have to be solved over with long plans, short-term mitigation, getting laws changed, building facilities where we can do care, wraparound services, job placement, and that's part of it. Part of it is just more housing, obviously, but that is, I think people underestimate how long it's going to take, right? The catalytic converter took like 25 years to clean up the air. The people who said that we should do this got made fun of their entire time. And only later do we go, oh yeah, that did work, right? And that's where politics runs into an issue, where there's no immediate, so the immediate thing you can do that will make people feel it's actually getting solved isn't the thing that'll solve it long term. So there's no political incentive to do long-term solutions because people are going to be upset because the problem didn't get solved. So you have to do both because how people feel about the issue does matter. So we have been talking about a plan for businesses or neighborhoods where trash is left, or God forbid feces or things like that, where the city will help clean it up, or they will add security if you've had a vagrancy like petty vandalism and things like that, because the city wants to be there. It goes, that's a problem, right? Your business got affected, and we want you to feel like you can still have your business here while we solve the other problems. So that way people don't get so upset thinking nothing's happening. Because sometimes it's like, you're doing all this for them, but what about the problem I'm dealing with? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to solve both, right? I don't care about one more than the other. You're all citizens of Riverside, and we want to make sure that they have the highest quality of life possible for them. So.
Well, thank you so much. Hello. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And again, those who are here, this is a little bit of a draw to come in person. People who are here can speak with you during the ONEG, hopefully.
No, thank you for having me. And I think this needs to happen more, not just because we all got sick of COVID, but simply because I already feel better about things. Getting a question in person, being able to look you in the eye, explain why, versus this, it changes the way I think about it and changes the thoughts I'm having. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to play musical chairs, and you can go there. Not yet. I have to call up our board member to do announcements. Sorry.
What if I lose? Oh.
Yeah, if you lose. Luckily, there are enough seats here. Can I take that and give it to Jason? Yes, Jason Winston, who is on our board, and also the chair of our COVID committee. He's going to go sit over there. Okay.
Does this work, Asher? Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So just a few announcements. If you have missed the presentation on November 3rd that was about end-of-life options and you're interested in viewing it, the recording is on the TBE YouTube channel, and there's also a link in this week's email. The next Torah study will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. It is going to be hybrid, so you can join us in person in the Beit Midrash or on Zoom. I'm sure Rabbi will be very disappointed if nobody shows up after she made a lot of effort to get people to be able to do it in person, but that's up to the people who actually like to come to Torah study. And just a reminder, this is Rabbi's last year, and maybe if you've never gone to Torah study or you would like to resume coming to Torah study, it might honor her by making your presence there. Also on November 25th, we're going to have an honor at the service for the baby naming of Diane Eskrit's granddaughter, Avery Ella Eskrit. So Mazel Tov, Diane. There's a lot of adult ed planned in December. Rabbi has set up a 3-part series on Yiddish culture and language arts that will be taught by Rabbi Annette Koch. All congregants are welcome to join. It will be Zoom only, and it's going to start a 3-part series starting on Thursday, December 1st at 6 p.m. about the world of Yiddish culture. Then there'll be one on Thursday, December 8th at 6 p.m. about Bintel Brief. I don't know what that is. And the 3rd part will be on Thursday, December 15th at 6 p.m. and will be about Midrash in Yiddish. And some save the dates if you haven't already done so. We are having our Tree of Life event to recognize temple members who went above and beyond during the pandemic and the not yet over pandemic. And that's going to be on Saturday, December 10th. The time is actually not finalized, so I'm not going to say what it is because I've
6 or 7,
seen different
something
things
like that. It's not going to be at 4, 6 or 7. No,
it is going to be a full dinner.
It's going to be a dinner rather than just soup and salad.
And mark your 2023 calendars for April 15th for Rabbi's bat mitzvah. And thank you to Lynn Lipscomb for sponsoring tonight's Oneg, which will be outside on our patio after the conclusion of the service. And does anyone else have any announcements that they need to? No, we don't want to test your voice tonight. Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks. And I want to thank Elliot Levine for the music tonight. For a change. Okay. We are going to rise for the Alein.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לרוצה בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו ושכינתו זו בגובה מרמים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב תורתו, וידעת היום והשלבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד.
Richard Walsley.
And on Zoom, let me see. Sean Heslin. Deborah Nichols. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with this thing. Phil Bush, Edith Tanizaki, Ruth Landis, Terry Shawn, Stephen Alexander, Joanne Heslin. I think that's it. And we're observing yard sites this Shabbat for Alan Falk, Gary Henley, Dick Richards, Victoria Richards, Henry Artigue, Eva Cruz, Fanny Fenster, David Elkin, Leonard Silverman, Rita Silverman, Walter Grau, Eric Glucksman, Bob Fry, Debbie H. Hoffman, Louis J. Margolin, Morris Lee Bresnick. And I would like to also read the names of service people, Jewish service people who perished over the last year. So we have Jewish American service personnel killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, Special Agent Anthony L. Capra, Sergeant First Class Christopher M. Salis, Corporal Ryan J. Clark, Corporal Michael R. Cohen, Second Lieutenant Seth J. Devoran, Lance Corporal Mark E. Engel, Corporal Mark A. Evnen, Private First Class Aaron E. Fairbairn, First Lieutenant Daniel Farkas, Sergeant Zachary M. Fisher, Specialist Jacob S. Fletcher, Specialist Daniel J. Freeman, Specialist Douglas Green, Sergeant Foster L. Harrington, Airman First Class Elizabeth Jacobson, Lance Corporal Jeremy M. Kane, Petty Officer Second Class SEAL Matthew G. Cantor, First Lieutenant Nathan M. Krisoff, Staff Sergeant James M. Malakowski, Private First Class Jebra P. Noonan, Specialist Levy E. Nuncio, Corporal Michael Oramus, Staff Sergeant Roger J. Paul, Major Mark E. Rosenberg, Corporal Dustin H. Schrag, First Lieutenant Rosalind and Robert M. Secker, Specialist Mark S. Seiden, Airman First Class Matthew R. Seiden, Captain Michael Y. Tarlovsky, Staff Sergeant Peter W. Taub, Private First Class Morris L. Walker, Specialist Glenn J. Watkins, Technical Sergeant Timothy R. Wiener, Sergeant Robert M. Weingor, Specialist Jeffrey M. Wershow, Private First Class Colin J. Wolf, Major Stuart A. Wolfer, Sergeant Elijah Tai Wa Wong, Specialist Benjamin Ben Yehuda, Senior Airman Jonathan A. V. Yelner, and Lieutenant Miroslav Steven Silberman. And we appreciate the sacrifice of their lives and those who serve us every day and have served us in the past. And we, of course, think of those who perished in the Holocaust, have no one to say the mourner's Kaddish for them. Please join me on page 598 and 294 in the smaller book. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yehutei v'yehu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, Amen. And tell us a little bit about our closing song, Buena Semana, another Sephardic song.
The song is, oh, you can have a seat.
We can?
Well,
We usually stand for the closing song and put our arms around each other, but we can sit too,
okay, well,
depending on how tired people are.
This is a song that was gathered in Morocco from Tetuan. But it's in Ladino, which is like Old Spanish. And we're saying, a good week may God give us for my children, for naming ceremonies, and for putting on tefillin, and have a good week. So the words are, Buena Semana, everyone say that? Buena Semana, Nos del Dios, Nos del Dios. And we say that 3 times, and that's the chorus, and here's how it goes. Buena semana nos del Dios. You try that. Buena semana nos. Again. Buena semana nos del Dios. Buena semana nos del Dios. Buena semana. Buena semana nos del Dios. Buena semana. A mis hijos y bien decir, a mis hijos bien decir, que me los deje yo vivir, buena semana. Que me los deje yo vivir, buena semana. Here we go. Buena semana nos del Dios. Buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana, buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana. Para fadar y circuncir, para fadar y circuncir, y pon el tefelín, buena semana. Y pon el tefelín, buena semana, everyone. Buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana nos del Dios, buena semana.
Buena semana nos del Dio. Buena semana.
That means have a good week,
Have a good week.
right? Shavua Tov. But first, before we go out to eat, we have to do a little blessing over the bread.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our prayer it was said. Baruch atah Adonai, the two versions. Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Which version do we do? Our joyful prayer or? Oh, okay, there's another version. That's why I get confused. Our prayer is humbly
Shabbat
said.
Shalom to those on Zoom. Again, feel free to hang out with each other for a bit.